Hey there everyone, Mr. Lewis here again with Mini this time to talk about your Unit 3 multiple choice test over folk and pop culture. And yes, we've already started with Unit 4, religion and ethnicity, and you've been doing a terrific job with that so far, but what I'm asking you to do today is to just kind of hit the pause button on Unit 4 so that we can revisit the Unit 3 test and look at what we did right, what we did wrong, and try to examine those errors in reasoning and improve so that if this content appears on future tests, both in this class or on the AP exam, which it certainly will, you'll feel a lot stronger and more confident about it. So what I'm asking you to do today is one thing: complete your Unit 3 test corrections document. It is linked in Buzz. You're going to make your own copy. Fill it out for all of the questions that you missed on the Unit 3 test, listing the question itself, your incorrect answer, the correct answer, and then an explanation of both why you thought the incorrect answer was correct, and then, of course, why the correct answer is actually the right one. So if you complete this thoroughly and you demonstrate effort and you show me that you do get it now, you can earn back 1/4 of those missed points on the Unit 3 test. So it's really important that we patch up any of those mistakes and feel confident about it moving forward. What I'm going to do here is go through quickly every single one of those questions on the test to just give you a basic outline of why the correct answer is the correct answer. So without further ado, let's jump into that. Okay, so starting from your Buzz agenda today, underneath the instructions, there are two key things. It says, one, click here to make a copy of the Unit 3 test corrections document. Go ahead and do that. It will prompt you to make a copy of the template I've already created for you. All you need to do is first put your name at the top here where it says copy of. Just put your first initial and last name. Second, click the big blue share button. And when you do that, click down here where it says change link to Crown Point Community Schools. And once you do that, you shouldn't have to do anything else because now anyone in this group can view this document if they have the link. I am in this group, so when you go to submit it, I'll be able to see it. Finally, for each question you missed on the test, here's what you need to do. One, copy and paste the question in this space on the leftmost column of the document. Two, copy and paste your answer next to it. Three, copy and paste the correct answer. And then finally, the most important part, write a 1 or 2 sentence explanation over here on the right that demonstrates to me you get it now and you fix that error, and if this shows up on a future test, you will be ready to answer that question correctly and confidently. So I am just going to spend my time, instead of jumping back and forth here, I'm going to spend my time in the test itself. And I'm going to go through all 30 questions. So the second instruction here says click here to open your Unit 3 multiple choice test results. When you do that, you should be able to see everything you answered right and everything you answered wrong. And you only have to use the questions that you answered wrong in the test corrections document to earn back 1/4 of those points. Your questions might be in a different order than mine, but I'm just going to go 1 through 30, and if you need to jump around a little bit or pause, rewind, fast forward, whatever you got to do, you can use this review as you see fit. And of course, if any of these explanations that I give aren't sufficient enough for you, reach out to me through email and I will give you a more detailed explanation using different wording, and we'll find a way to make it click for you. So let's do this. Number 1, which of the following countries does not share much in common with English culture as a result of diffusion through the British Empire? This answer would be Vietnam because they were colonized by the French, so there's a lot of French culture there, but not a lot of English culture through the British Empire. Number 2, the populations in the countries of Morocco, Tunisia, and Mauritania are all more than 99% Muslim. This best represents which of the following? The answer here would be homogenized culture, because any culture in which people believe and practice very similar things, that leads to homogenization. People are very similar in their customs, in their behaviors, maybe even in their material culture, right? Well, in places like Morocco, Tunisia, Mauritania, where you have more than 99% of the population practicing the religion of Islam, that is going to lead to a lot of homogenization. You have people who believe very similar things, and that is going to trickle down throughout the culture to a lot of other similarities as well. Number 3, music in popular culture is more likely to be widely distributed because pop culture music or pop music is meant to make money, and the more people you get it out to on the radio or through television or through record sales, whatever it might be, the more money you're going to make. Number 4, the evidence of beliefs, values, and diffusion in a particular geographic location are on display through the cultural landscape. The cultural landscape is the collection of everything on a particular landscape, meaning if you just walked outside and looked around at the landscape, you would be able to pick up on all sorts of culture, whether it was religious worshiping places or language that is used on street signs or a fast food location or anything like that. That all contributes to the cultural landscape. It's giving us an idea of the beliefs and values and diffusion in that particular location. Number 5, less developed countries are less likely to experience cultural diffusion because they lack modern communication systems and electronic media. So today, most diffusion occurs through electronic media. If you don't have access to all of that electronic media, and if your communication systems aren't very strong, then there's going to be less diffusion overall. Number 6, when Oprah Winfrey endorses books on her TV show, they often become bestsellers. This is an example of hierarchical diffusion. You've got a power figure, in this case a cultural icon, Oprah Winfrey, who endorses something and everyone says, okay, yeah, I'm going to try that thing too. In this case, reading the books that she suggests and endorses. That is an example of hierarchical diffusion. Number 7, which of the following best represents the diffusion of an element of folk culture? The only one of these 5 that really represents anything related to folk culture is the popularity of fur coats originally worn by Inuit tribes. So fur coats were developed by folk cultures that had to use their natural resources, fur, in order to keep themselves warm, right? Well, now you see fur coats worn all around the world, and sometimes just for fun, not because of the weather, right? As more of a style thing. We see this a lot in, say, like music videos and things like that. That's an example of an element of folk culture that has diffused to the rest of the world and now is really an element of pop culture. But it started in folk culture. Number 8. Food, shelter, and clothing each represent which of the following? Those are the elements of material culture. Food, shelter, clothing. Things that we can see, things that are clearly visible within a culture. Number 9, which of the following sets of data are associated with stage 1 of the DTM? So this is going back to Unit 2, population and migration. And in stage 1, we have very high birth rates, very high death rates, and because both of those are high, there's not much natural increase rate. High birth, high death, low natural increase. Number 10, the largest cluster of pop music in the United States is in which of the following cities? The answer is Nashville, and the reason for that is over the years, so many talented artists have come out of Nashville that it's led to this sort of, we call this agglomeration of talent and record producers and executives and managers who all contribute to the pop music scene in Nashville, and it has just become, by and large, the biggest cluster of pop music success in the United States and really in North America. Number 11, there are 2 main branches of Islam, Sunni and Shia. While the 2 groups share the same fundamental beliefs and practices, history has seen each branch develop their own cultural identities. This best represents which of the following? This is stimulus diffusion, because stimulus diffusion suggests that there's something being spread where people are keeping some core elements fundamental beliefs and practices, but then adding in their own unique elements as well, or in this case, their own cultural identities. Stimulus diffusion. The origin of a particular cultural element is known as the hearth. The hearth of anything is where it originated. Number 13, in figure 1.2 above, what is true about the map on the left? So you've got a map of New York, and then you have a map of the greater northeast United States and even parts of Canada. So the one on the left is more zoomed in, and then the one on the right is more zoomed out. Whenever we are more zoomed in, so to speak, or closer to the ground, if you want to think about it like that, closer to buildings, closer to the people, closer to the streets, that means that we are on a larger scale. The more zoomed in we are, the larger the scale. So the map on the left is a larger scale than the map on the right. Number 14, relocation diffusion best explains which of the following? This would be the popularity of Christianity throughout South America. Christianity is by and far the most popular religion throughout South America. It wouldn't be there if there weren't countries, kingdoms that had colonized parts of South America and brought their religion with them, and that is relocation diffusion. And specifically, we're talking about the Spanish Empire there, although there were others. The Spanish Empire was the main diffuser of specifically, not just Christianity, but specifically within Christianity, Catholicism throughout South America, Central America, and even parts of the United States. Number 15, which of the following best describes a specific population's body of customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits? When you see those three things, customs, social forms, material traits, that all accumulates to be culture. That is simply culture. That's what we've been talking about throughout all of Unit 3. It's what defines a particular body of people, right? A particular population, that's their culture. Number 16, the Romans were not a Christian empire until after Constantine became the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity. After that, more and more people within the empire began to convert. This is a classic example of hierarchical diffusion. The emperor switches to Christianity, so all of these people within the empire switch as well. That's a clear-cut case of hierarchical diffusion. 17, the two most influential determinants of folk culture are always nature and religion. The natural environment, natural resources, the climate, the surroundings, and religious beliefs. Those are the main two influential elements of folk culture. Number 18, customs of today's popular culture are most likely to originate in which of the following regions? Most pop culture in the 21st century has come from the United States and Canada or countries in Western Europe. So the only possible answer here would be North America. The United States and Canada are dominated by popular culture, right? You guys see it every day. So most popular culture hearths come from or are in North America. Number 19, in almost any major city in the world, one is likely to see certain fast food franchises such as McDonald's and Starbucks. This is an example of uniform landscape. What we start to see around the world as places like McDonald's and Starbucks or any type of common store or restaurant, as these things start to replicate throughout the world, this contributes to a more uniform landscape, meaning anywhere you go, you're going to see some of the same stuff. It's uniform. Number 20, social media outlets are largely responsible for the diffusion of popular culture. Most pop culture is diffused in today's world through electronic media, and social media is the biggest, strongest type of electronic media in terms of pop culture diffusion in today's world. Number 21, folk cultures are able to protect their culture and customs through isolation. If you are keeping electronic media from invading your community, so to speak, if you are keeping all of these popular trends and new age things from making their way into your culture, then you have a much better chance at sustaining your culture, right? And preserving that culture. So the best way to protect against that, because pop culture, while we love it, it is very invasive. It's very trendy, right? It's hard not to get caught up in some of these trends that go around, whether it's on the internet or just in pop culture in general. So the best way to protect against that is isolate yourself. Number 22, in which of the following countries has the diffusion of Facebook faced the most resistance? The answer here would be Russia. And just like in China, the government in Russia is very restrictive and very controlling of the flow of information online. So the diffusion of Facebook has met quite a bit of resistance in that country, as well as in China and some other countries that have very strict controlling governments that wish to control the flow of information or diffusion of information. 23. Due to cultural taboos, wine is very seldom produced in which of the following regions? North Africa. Why? Because North Africa is predominantly Muslim, and it is a cultural taboo in Islam to produce or drink wine. So much of that region, we don't see a ton of wine being produced because it doesn't fall within their cultural regularities. Number 24, in figure 1.14 above, we can see a cartogram representation of population through each of China's provinces. So on the left is a map of China, on the right is the cartogram map. You can see that in the map of China as it is, the western provinces are really, really big, right, over here on this side. But when you look at the cartogram map based on population, that's all squeezed together. So the answer would be, although China's western provinces are largest by size, they are some of the smallest by population. 25. Which of the following best describes popular culture? Popular culture, where is it here? Here we go. The diffusion of popular culture results in large heterogeneous populations. Popular culture generates the kind of population we have here in the United States. It's very diverse. There are mixed interests. There are all these different people practicing very, very different belief systems and values and preaching those values, right? And wearing all kinds of different clothing and eating different cuisines. And we have this great, big, awesome, wonderful melting pot. Whereas in some parts of the world, usually where folk culture is dominant, you have more homogenous populations, right? There's more cultural homogenization as opposed to heterogeneous populations that are very diverse. 26. One specific example of a folk custom is Quan Ho music. And this was the music we talked about in Vietnam that was historically and traditionally used to pass along agricultural strategies and agricultural traditions, right? All of these other things listed here are based on popular culture. They're based on diffusion of popular culture just through trends, or it could be because they're based on commodification, right? Making money and profiting from things, as opposed to Quan Ho music, which was meant to pass along agricultural tricks and tips and tell people how they could get a better yield out of their crops that year. It wasn't meant to be sold for profit in any way. 27. Today, folk culture is often used as means for attracting customers and tourists. This best represents which of the following? This is what we call cultural commodification, right? Trying to make money or commodify culture. All right, which of the following best explains why highly developed countries have lower fertility rates? This would be greater levels of gender equality. We talked about this in Unit 2. As there are greater levels of gender equality, women have tons of opportunities that they might not have had otherwise, and that leads to overall lower fertility rates because women are delaying having children to approach career goals or academic goals. Also, in highly developed countries, we have more improved healthcare systems which also leads to lower fertility rates because of knowledge about family planning. 29. The largest amount of internal migration in America takes place as people move from suburban to urban areas. So urban to suburban. Got mixed up there. There it is. Urban to suburban. In the United States, we see most people moving from cities like Chicago to suburbs like Crown Point. And the reason for that is cities have become very densely populated, right? Very loud, in a lot of cases, very polluted. And because of that high density, there's a high cost of living in those urban areas. So we've seen a lot of people go from urban areas, big cities, to suburbs. Last but not least, number 30, the main cause of global cultural diffusion throughout the period from 1400 to 1700, this was the age of exploration. Okay, that's it for the Unit 3 test. I hope this helped. If you still have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me through email. I am here to help. Keep up the great work. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. Bye.